been a long 2 weeks since we've been back in the studio in downtown Toronto at Ryerson University. Both of us were away for Passover. Sherry, did you stay off the bread for 8 days, or?
I stayed off the bread, ate a lot of matzah.
That makes one of us.
Oh, yeah. Just one of us.
That makes one of us.
Oh, so we're only 50% gone here then.
Apparently.
Not a good average if you're a goaltender.
No, not at all. But
You're only stopping one every second shot.
We'll get more to that later. Sherry, a ton has happened in the world of sports in the past 2 weeks, particularly in hockey. The Stanley Cup playoffs have begun, and the Toronto Maple Leafs are shocking the hockey world right now.
Well, they're not shocking themselves. They're not shocking. They're not shocking Babcock. Who's a great motivator, preparation.
Are you surprised at all? Are you shocked?
Well, I'll tell you. When I talk to the players, and I know some of the players, as you know, they really do believe they believe that they could play them, that they could take them on, that this wasn't going to be a whitewash like a lot of people picked the maximum of 5 games, and now when they started winning and then they lost the first one in overtime, they're saying, hey, we can play with these guys. Then they won. You start winning a couple of games now. You and I have talked about this many times. There's a difference between hoping you will win and believing you can win. And now they believe they can win. Last night they didn't have it, it wasn't great. I thought Anderson could have been better. I don't like to pinpoint, but there's key saves that you got to make in a game.
Couple bad turnovers too, and yes, it'll cost you.
But those things happen, though. It's a game of mistakes. You know that you're going to make some mistakes where they're going to get chances, and Anderson all year long has bailed them out.
Sherry, the fact that they're tied right now, I just want to ask you, do you believe that this is more of a testament of how good of a team Toronto is and people may not have realized, or do you think it's a testament to, maybe the Washington Capitals aren't exactly what everyone thinks?
No, I think it's a combination of a few things. I think, they won the President's Trophy. They're playing the Leafs. They know they have speed. They know they have a lot of good talent. I'm sure they're thinking in the back of their mind that this is a different season as we've seen in postseason. Postseason, I used to always say that there's 4 seasons in the game, okay? There's summer season when you prepare. There's preseason. There's the season, and there's postseason. And there's a total different concentration. And I know when I happened to visit with Brownie and some of the guys, because he played for me, as we've talked about, and they were very, very confident once they got in the playoffs and so forth that they like their structure. They play hard. They got speed. The young guys got ability. They've proven that. And now, which I've been telling everybody, that they now believe they can win. They were saying those things before. They were believing it, but they didn't. And all the games were close and what's happening. They believe they can win. That's a big factor. But Washington also knows that, hey, let me tell you this. There'll be big changes in that Washington team as far as players if they don't get by this first round.
Oh, of course. It's inevitable. They have a ton of RFAs. They have a ton of UFAs going into the summer. This is Washington's year. And
they've got some good young players, too, though.
Of course.
Burakovsky.
They have to get them all signed.
That's right. They do.
Burakovsky has actually looked very impressive. He has very good hands.
He really
Former Erie Otter.
And he can skate.
Yeah.
Can you imagine this junior line? This was a junior line. This is a good time to bring it up. Burakovsky was at left wing. Brown was at right wing, and a guy by the name of Connor McDavid was at center ice. Can you imagine watching a line like that in junior hockey? I mean...
And now they're all competing for a Stanley Cup?
That's right, and not only that, they got talent, and they can speed, and they got all the things.
Yeah.
The point is, when they got to this level, everybody was saying it was a different level.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people miss... I was visiting with Steve Simmons yesterday on the phone. We were talking. Since I can remember in sports, and I don't care what, there are special moments in a game that can turn a tide, that get old Mo on your side, momentum. And no matter what, when you go back and study as to what happened, and we were playing real well, and something went, either a break here or there, and special moments in the last couple of games. The Monday night game. Okay? I'm looking at this game, and Washington gets a two-man advantage. Never mind the two-man advantage, and they don't score. They get another power play right after it. And I looked at somebody that I was with, and I said, whether you call it the TSN turning point, but let me tell you this. This is going to be a factor here. When they killed that off, there's a sense, first of all, the team that had all those power play opportunities, they're saying, like, what is going on? We couldn't put one away. And they're not trying to say anything, but they're bugged emotionally from the coach down. Make no mistake about it. We had a chance to put them away. We had a chance to get a goal or two, and we didn't. Guess what? Leafs are down 4-3. Big hope at the end of the second period. They got a two-man advantage with the exception of about 6 seconds. Got some good chances. Don't score. And then a couple of goals that they'd like back that were scored against them. Not the fact they broke down, because it's, as we said, it's a game of mistakes. You know that there's going to be some mistakes. It's not robots out there being directed by computers. And I think Anderson would like to have a couple of those back. But in the meantime, whatever you say about that, they wouldn't be in the playoffs if it wasn't for Anderson.
Of course.
So we don't want to forget that. And then you start looking at guys. I mean, you and I were talking about this. I remember when we first started and everybody was talking their need on defense, because it's defense by committee. Make no mistake, it's defense by committee right now. You know, and that they've got to trade somebody. And I remember listening, driving in my car in different radio stations.
William Nylander.
Not gonna. I mean, this guy, and that's an example that you and I have talked about a lot, about not having enough patience.
Yeah.
Forgetting that these guys are young kids.
Well, people just talk for the sake of talking,
That's
really.
a really good point.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, hey, look, this is a maturity thing. Wait till they, listen, Hunwick the other night got 38 minutes in that game that went to second overtime. And I'm not taking away from Hunwick, you know what I mean? He does. And Marinson, who sat out 30 games in a row, got 26 or 27 or 28 minutes. Now, with all due respect on the top blue lines, and I don't want to take away anything from Hunwick because he's doing a heck of a job, and I like his speed and moving the puck. There is no chance, if that's a full blue line that they really believe in, that those guys wouldn't be at best 5 and 6, if not 6 and 7 defensemen. And look what they're getting done, and look what Babcock's getting on them. And that's the old adage that we say about believing that you can get it done as opposed to hoping. And now it'll be interesting, because as you and I have talked about, not easy to get good defensemen.
No, not at all.
Not easy.
No.
And as you said before, and we visited, I watched that Larson playing hard minutes and in people's face for Edmonton, and look what they had to give up to get him. And they rave about him.
Yeah.
And so and when you look at this, what are they going to give up?
And before we move on, I just want to say that I think that the Leafs believe that they can win right now. It's a combination of believing in themselves, and I just don't think that they're very intimidated by Washington. I think that no matter who wins this series, I think Pittsburgh's going to advance against Columbus, and I personally think that Pittsburgh's going to have their way with either Toronto or Washington in the next round. But I don't really think personally that Washington is a very scary team, and in fact, they haven't looked like a very scary team, Sherry.
Well, the biggest thing that I think, I think they got scary forwards. I think they got a pile of forwards there that can get it done. I think from the appearance of their blue line has been overrated here, overstated. You know what I mean? That when I look at what's going on, the speed of Toronto's forwards, getting in behind those defensemen and giving them everything. And you can see physically they're strong physical guys, because Toronto's got a bunch of young kids that haven't grown into each other yet. And grown into themselves, not each other. Have grown, they aren't men yet. And so, And I see that I'm concerned about their speed there, and they're, I'm looking at some of those guys are getting older, and whatever the factor is, it's, and Shattenkirk hasn't really overly impressed me, especially defensively. And I'm not here to pick on personalities, but I mean, this guy's going to cost a lot of money to sign. And he was on the ice there on that one particular goal in overtime, and both defensemen behind the net. Not that we don't all make mistakes, but my point is, for the kind of money that he's going to command, I expected more out of him.
Definitely. I agree. Sherry, to me, William Nylander has been one of the, if not the most impressive Maple Leafs so far. He's been incredible. Things he's doing with the puck are amazing. That whole line has been a ton of fun to watch. But we're learning how important it is to just be patient, right? They didn't rush with Nylander like people were saying. They're obviously giving him time. He's young. And another team that showed tremendous patience, and it's really paying off, the Pittsburgh Penguins with their goaltending situation. Thank goodness they didn't trade Marc-Andre Fleury.
And not only patience. There's a bunch of young guys on that Pittsburgh team. Okay, let's get something straight here. 87's playing with 2 rookies. The old story about great players, the Connor McDavids, the Crosbys, the Gretzkys. I've heard people say, I want to go, try to go to a team where there's a lot of good players. Great, good players make other players better. And take a look at what's happening here. And so let's not forget that, although I'm not writing off the Washington Capitals as quickly as you are, because we are looking in at history, and it's a total different year. I know this. They haven't done well in the playoffs. We all know that. The issue, though, is I'm still not writing them off because I watched them closely. I really like their forwards. And Holtby, when Holtby decided to shut her down last night, he shut them down. And so my point is this.
I didn't think Holtby was particularly impressive.
Oh, I thought there was a couple of times he made some key saves, especially on the power play there.
I don't think he's been overly impressive in the series. I don't think.
No,
he's really
I think that's it. I think you're right. I think that there's no question about that. But the thing is this, as we've talked about, and you got to give Babcock and his coaching staff here
credit, of course.
You got to get Lou Lamoriello with his foresight. All the things we've talked about, what they've done here. And the real issue is the Leafs are going to just get better.
Yeah. They got nothing to lose.
Issue.
They got nothing to lose. Their backs.
But the fact is that they're going to get better. And Pittsburgh, with their speed, and as you pointed out, the patience of keeping Fleury, because he's been very, very good. And in the secret about the goaltender, it's not the ones that some big saves, they say this guy made a big saves. It's the key saves at the right time of the game. That's the secret of a good goaltender. The secret of the good goaltender, when it's a 2-1 game for your team and he makes a really, really big-time save, the momentum again, as opposed to that puck going in the net and then you go down and score and make it 3-1, or vice versa if you're down 2-1. The issue is the key saves that you make, which brings us to Toronto. Anderson will like that 5th goal back.
Definitely.
Make no mistake about that. He believes that he could have made that save. And he knows he's capable of it. And so, I don't want to dwell on that because he's been the key reason, as we said earlier, why they are where they are. And but those are the key things that turn a game around. And as you and I have talked about, take a look about goaltending, what's going on around the league. The Jake Allens, all these guys. The goaltending that's going on in Anaheim. Okay? That both goaltenders now they can rely on.
Yeah. Well, look at Calgary.
Yeah. That's a good thing you brought that up, actually.
What have we talked about in the past on the show, Sherry?
Hey, you know what I said? Goaltending 75%. If you don't have it, it's 100. And I don't know. That's not the issue, but they don't have it because he has been good at certain times of the game. but he wasn't consistently good as good as he was when they went on that winning streak, and that's the key to your goal. That's the key to your game.
And Sherry, if you don't know who you're necessarily going to play before a game in the next couple of games, you said it yourself on the show before. You've got some issues here.
When you have to ask the question, who's going to play tonight, you got a problem in net. Make no mistake about that.
Sherry, let's talk about the Edmonton Oilers. Your man, Connor McDavid, he's been impressive in his first playoff appearance.
He's extremely impressive. And I want to talk a couple of things like that. Everybody's talking here about this 7-0 loss. Those things, that's an uncommon situation. The real issue that's got to be that Edmonton's looking at, they went into San Jose and got home ice advantage back. That's a big factor. That's a big factor. You think that they're going to win this thing in 5 games or something like that? They're going to sweep these guys? The issue is that they got home ice advantage back. And McDavid is a threat almost every time he's on the ice.
Of course.
And they're concentrating. They haven't scored a lot of goals and so forth like that, but he's creating opportunities. He's driving the net now. I see he's shooting a little more than he is. He's such an unselfish player and person. And I love his game defensively. I mean, everybody had talked about, I remember that we were in, when he was playing junior, we were playing an exhibition game in Buffalo, and they had a big crowd there, 12,000 people. And we won big, and he was in a lot of goals. And I'm listening to some talk show the next day, and somebody calls it and said, I noticed he didn't back check every shift. Back checkers are drafted in the 4th round. The point is he's accepted that responsibility, and he's on killing penalties. He's on key times of the game when they're up a goal, because the coach knows he can trust them both ends of the ice.
He's a do-it-all type of player.
That's exactly right.
But in that last game, Sherry, and every team has a down game, but San Jose looked tremendous. And we saw flashes of the team last year who marched their way to the Stanley Cup final. And a team that, if they can get past Edmonton, don't know if I'd necessarily be surprised if they made another march to the Cup.
Well, I mean, I think, but I mean, I don't look at that, but they got a couple of goals. They get a couple of goals, and you're saying this is what's going on the team that's down 2-0. Hey, let's get ourselves back here. We're going to get another goal. We're going to get the next goal. We're going to get in the game. Bingo, it's 3-0. I'm talking from an emotional and human behavior aspect. 3-0. Said, hey, we got our work cut out for us. Settle down, guys. We're going to get one here. It's going to be 3. We're going to chip away. We're going to chip away. You know, the way they move a mountain is one stone at a time. They don't move the whole mountain. Okay? You're thinking that, bingo, it's 4-0. Now you're saying, what's going on here?
It was a lost game.
And so then when it's 5-0, you say, as much as you don't and you're giving everything and hoping to get a break, it's an uphill battle to get 6 goals with a half a game left, especially in the playoffs. So from that standpoint,
it was a lost game.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a real measurement. It's not a real measurement.
No, but most importantly, what we saw from that game is that San Jose is very, very capable of showing what they were able to do last year in the postseason. They still have it. They just need to do it on a consistent basis, because as much as people want to take Edmonton, I know that a lot of Canadians are cheering for Edmonton. This is a young team entering its first postseason in more than 10 years, playing against a team that went to the Stanley Cup last season, and it's going to be very tough, in my opinion, in these last 3 games for Edmonton to come out of it, but we'll have to see. I mean, I'm a firm believer that your best players have to be your leaders, and I know that Edmonton has that, so you always say it, Sherry. I think in these next couple games, McDavid's going to have to say, hey guys, I'm the bus. Everyone hop in because I'm going to ride us to victory.
Well, first of all, it's a battle no matter what. What I've found interesting watching the playoffs is the difference between the East and the West. Out West, it's a physical game. I mean, they want to hit the ushers. Anything that's moving. If they see anything that's moving, they want to run over top. And in the East, it's a real speed game, and not that they don't have their speed too, but I'll tell you what, you gotta make sure you're coming to work. Make no mistake about that. And to me, it's a pick'em series anyway. It's got nothing to do with about when people talk about these teams are evenly matched teams. And you get a key save here that we talked, or somebody gets a highlight goal, or one goes over off somebody's leg, it can turn a game in a series. And it's a game of inches, make no mistake about it. We've talked about that for a long time. And I found out that building things is harder than criticizing them. And that anyone can critique. Not everyone has the courage to create. And I've said that many times. And they're creating things, and it's going to fall. And funny that we're talking about this right now. And hey, Talbot didn't have one of his great games either. He'll tell you that. I mean, you watched him when he skated off, and he knows. But those things happen. That's why they call us human beings.
Of course.
Because we are human. But when we switch from that and we talk about goaltending, we should focus on the Rangers Canadiens series. You talk about what's going on there, and those are hard games to play. They're 1-goal games. I mean, take a look at it. And it's the same. Edmonton won a game 1-0. And they lose 7-0. But that tells you that they can play in close games and tight games because Talbot will make the key save.
But we're not going to see a game like that in the Montreal-New York series.
Exactly. Point. 100% you're right. I mean, it's a goaltender's duel there.
It's fantastic.
Because both teams are challenged to score. You and I talked about this well before the playoffs start. Not a lot there's been some. But series are won on 1-goal games, generally speaking. There's been some, and there was a 5-4 game the other night and stuff like that with Washington and Toronto. And okay. Normally they're hard-fought 2-1, 3-2 game, working hard to get that goal. It's tight. And so there's been a lot of teams that would be having a lot of success if they had Price or Lundqvist in their net.
Well, let's look back in the Western Conference, Sherry. St. Louis, you mentioned earlier with Jake Allen. He's been playing very well.
No question.
How about the Nashville Predators?
Rene. Absolutely.
And the defense on Nashville, they've been incredible. Roman Yossi's been amazing, averaging more than 28 minutes a game. Unbelievable.
Well, you take a look. Okay, Yossi, Subban, Ellison, Ekholm. Significant difference in those 4 defensemen with the Leafs, and not to underestimate some of the players that are going to be good on the Leaf blue line.
We know, Sherry, this Nashville team has arguably the best defense in the league, and we're seeing it against the Chicago Blackhawks now.
I know this. The top 4, which play the most, okay? When you got top 4 going a lot, okay, and they're playing and you know how good they are, and they got speed in their feet and they're quick. Ellis has developed into such a really good defenseman. When you look at all these particular things that you think about it, what did I tell you about building a hockey team?
You start from the back up.
Back up, goaltender, defense, center ice. They've got a goaltender that's playing real good and 4 outstanding blue liners that can get them out of trouble. They get them out of trouble. It's hard to have a sustained attack with those guys on the ice.
Sure, we've seen with Nashville in the past, they've had the goaltending in the playoffs before. They've had the defense. They've had what it takes to win in that aspect. But we haven't seen the scoring from Nashville like we're witnessing right now. This team has some good forwards. Philip Forsberg, Ryan Johansson, Victor Arvidsson, Kevin Fiala is stepping up, James Neal, Mike Fisher. I mean, these guys, this is the first time we've seen a Nashville team with this much offensive upside in how long?
Well, more than that, though. That everybody believed in Rene, but this is as good as I've seen Rene play. And so he gives that team confidence to go down. There's no question about it. But, to be a real top contender and stuff, you'd like one or two more significant center icemen on that team. I'm a big fan of Fisher. I know Fisher when he was 15 years old, playing in Peterborough, and he is a high-character, great player.
But you think he's more of a third-line center than he is a second-line center?
I think he, at this point in time, because I'm a big believer in him, though. But if he was a third-line center, and you know what the big key about having a good third-line center is that when you go into opposing buildings, they want to put their big line out against the third line. They're saying, bring them on. Bring them on. And, make no mistake about that. And so, and he's good on, he's just an effective player. Very effective player. But in the meantime, we're seeing, as well as those forwards are, as good as those forwards are, and as well as they're playing, the four blue liners and that goaltender dictate really what's going on right now.
Of course, but you got to find some scoring somewhere. Yeah. And listen, I'm still not counting out Chicago, but I mean, Nashville is looking like they're poised to make a bit of a run here. They seem to have the pieces.
We're going to find that out.
We're going to find that out is right.
The last time I checked, and math wasn't a bad subject, it takes 16 wins to win the Stanley Cup.
You're absolutely right.
They got 3. So I wouldn't want to give Chicago too much life either.
No, me neither. I completely agree with that. Sherry, the Boston-Ottawa series has been, it's 3-1 right now for the Senators, of course, but it's been a very close series. Do you think that Ottawa is a team that can potentially continue its success down the stretch?
That's a hard-fought series there. But give Boston a lot of credit. They got 27 guys out of their lineup. I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but they got 5 or 6. I think it's 6. And you're talking like guys that can help you win a series, and for them to hang in there. But I'll tell you what's going to happen again. If Ottawa wins that series and they look like they're poised to do it, Boston's got to win 3 in a row to do it, is the confidence it's going to give them in their team and how they can play a team game, and you're not going to score a lot of goals against us. So if we can get a few, we're capable of beating you. Make no mistake, that's the feeling that's going to happen there, because they are tough to score on.
Of course.
And they play, and so that's a big factor that I see there. But it's unbelievable about you don't get any space. The real issue, and that's what San Jose did to Edmonton that last game. But that, to me, it's an aberration. You know what I mean? The 7-0, but they took all that space away, and they were all fired up and emotional. You know that when you're going into a home rink, no matter where it is, their home rink, and they're down 2-1. The whole idea that you're telling your players, we got to weather the storm here for 10 or 12 minutes. And if we can weather that storm, we're going to be okay here, because we're going to compose ourselves and get back in it. Which didn't happen in San Jose. They had a couple of goals there before he could say hello, mama. And with Ottawa, they can weather storms, these guys.
They've also got a man by the name of Erik Karlsson who's very capable
he's like
leading a team.
I don't want to take anything away from all these other great defensemen, because there's so many good ones, and we know we can go through the list. This guy is a special player. He really is a special player, and he's so good defensively. This guy's... And speaking of defensemen, in St. Louis, you're talking about how good Jake Allen's been. Pietrangelo, his game is about averaging just under 30 minutes a game, every second shift on the ice. He controls a lot of the tempo of that game, and why Minnesota has a tough time get going.
Sherry, we've broken down a whole bunch of the playoff series, but I want to talk to you about something else that happened with the Buffalo Sabres. Dan Bosma and Tim Murray were both relieved of their duties. I want to know your thoughts on the situation, and if you necessarily agree with the moves?
Well, here's what I do want to tell you. I know Ryan O'Reilly very. When you look up character in the dictionary, they got his picture. There's nobody that prepares harder than he does. There's nobody that works harder than he does. And at the end of the year, where he just had an outburst emotionally about how he's sick of this losing and is concerned about the atmosphere, he didn't say it. But I know Ryan O'Reilly. I'm telling you, he's such a special guy as a person. He's a workaholic guy. It rubs off on other people. And then you got Eichel. His interview at the very least was, as I heard described on one of the radio stations, was toxic at the end there and about his contract coming out. You know there was something brewing here. Something was going on. I think the Tim Murray thing's caught a lot of people by surprise. Because Tim Murray's done some things there, but I mean, the point is, those people, I know the ownership there. Good people. I mean, these people, you got to understand that family that owns that team. They didn't get their money by some magic carpet. They got foresight. They were hardworking people. They're very well prepared. So something in long-range planning here and stuff like that. Because Mr. Pikula said when they first bought the team that his dream was to bring a Stanley Cup championship there. And they got a bunch of young players. And take a look at where they're going. But it'll be interesting to see what the decisions are to get that young team, because there's a lot of good young players there.
Absolutely. They've got quite the core. Sherry, we're now going to talk to a general manager who you know pretty well from your former team, the Erie Otters.
Well, I got a lot of good things to say about Dave Brown.
All right. We're now joined by Erie Otters general manager Dave Brown. Dave, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on your show, guys.
Hey, Brownie, thanks for coming on here. I mean, let me tell the people a little bit about this guy. I know him really well personally. I know his family. This guy's hard-working. We got lucky. I got lucky when I had the team that some people didn't respect his abilities, and they were wrong, because he's extremely loyal, and he's hard-working, and he's dedicated, and he asks questions. Him and I visit a lot, and take a look at what he's done here before we ask him some questions. Take a look what's happened here. 50 wins 4 years in a row, never ever done in the history of junior hockey. So that says a lot of how he's added to what we had there, and that. So thanks again, Brownie, because we got some things to talk to you about and ask you some questions here.
Absolutely.
Dave, I want to ask you, are you feeling a little overwhelmed right now after that last victory?
You know what? I think the last victory was, I felt like my heart was going to come through my ribcage. But, outside of that, no, you know what? I think, in our first two 50-win years, while Sherry was with us, we made to the last year in the conference final that the first year. So it's familiar territory for us, and I think as a group, I know Dylan Strome alluded to it a little bit yesterday. We feel we have a little bit of unfinished business that we want to get done, and I think it's something 4 years in a row we've been in the conference final, and want to get back to the league final and maybe try to accomplish what we haven't been able to do to this point.
Well, I think you guys deserve it. I think what's been done there, your ownership that took over from me, he's just a heck of a guy, and he's got his heart in the whole thing, and that especially you and the coach. And you know what Helen Keller said, one should never consent to creep when one has the impulse to soar. So I think you guys got this impulse to soar. I think you put these pieces together. I think you made some key trades here to bring in some key people, and you and I visited about it. I remember, because I live in Oshawa, that Surly kid you brought in, and you phoned me and so forth, what I think of him, and I just loved him, and it was just, you'd already done your homework. But let's talk about that goaltender that you just beat out. Because is he, am I overstating how good he is, Brownie?
Well, I've only been in the league for 13 years now, and not a long time. And in my 13 years, I don't think I've ever seen anybody that has put that many consecutive performances. And I say consecutive performances, and we can look back to last year too, and how good he was for his team. And he's unbelievable. I mean, I never really asked the guys that played for the World Junior team for Canada and Chris, but I'm sure, I'm sure they were having a little bit of a flashback, going into Game 7 and thinking Parsons was in the other net. Oh boy, here we go again, type thing. But there's no doubt, he was unbelievable in the series. They have a hell of a hockey team, and they've got a lot of skill and are built in a similar fashion to how we are. And but there's no doubt he took his game to another level. And anytime you get, you shoot somebody, 45-12 and you lose 2-0, you scratch your head and you wonder, are we ever going to put a puck by this guy?
Well, not only that, shot them 45-25. You had 91 shots on them and you only scored 1 goal. And you got some pretty prolific players there.
Yeah, a few of those guys can score, no question. Binksy and that they can put some pucks behind guys and have made some pretty good goalies in our league look pretty average. And we were definitely second guessing ourselves. It's funny. I said to the guys after Game 5, I said, okay, now or after Game 4, I said, okay, we're best of 3 here. We have home ice. If I had told you that at the beginning of the year, what would you? And they're like, yeah, but Parsons in the other net, that's like that whole wild card situation there is crazy. So, and they were right. I mean, he's a guy that can definitely steal games. And you know what? Being down 3-1, I mean, I was wondering at that point, scratching my head, thinking, "Oh boy, here we go! Like we've got our work cut out for us." So it was a good character builder for our guys, and something that probably we haven't been faced with in the 4 years. At Game 7 and being down 3-1, going in, late into the first period before Darren Radish made it 3-2.
Yeah.
Dave, year in and year out, the London Knights are always a threat in the league. They've won a bunch of championships before, but now that you have managed to defeat them, is there a kind of a different feeling within the team right now? Like this is really our year to do this?
You know what? I think objectively we're looking at the next series as just as important as the other, the one that just passed. And 2 years ago we managed to beat London out in the second round of playoffs as well. So I think we're pretty careful. As Sherry knows, I mean, we've got a very good coach and coaching staff, and they're keeping everybody very level and humble. And I think that's maybe what maybe our calling card is. We're a pretty humble group, and I don't think we at any point look by one series to try and look ahead. But no doubt, it's nice to beat the London Knights and the everybody knows how great they are and everything else. But at the same time, we know we've got a real tough opponent. No one's sound ahead of us.
Yeah, well, first of all, you're running into another good goalie. I don't know that you could run into a better goalie than you just played against, but I mean he's a significant part of that team that you're going to play. Owen Sound, he's a significant part to their winning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you look down the rosters, and I know you guys have talked about it on your show about the playoff structure and everything else in the Western Conference. I mean, anytime you have there's no secret if you have a good team, you probably have some pretty good goaltending. And no doubt Michael McNiven, I know when we did the pre-scout on him, watching some of the stuff, he makes some great saves, and I think having played, Tyler Parsons definitely that adds to, you talk about experience and how did you handle the situation with Tyler, and I think we're probably better for having played Tyler first and now, having to go up against another solid goalie like Michael McNiven.
Well, the thing is about this, and when we look at it, and I've talked about it on the show about this playoff structure. I mean, in the West, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the East, but you win around in the West, you can't even get your breath. Like, you can't get your breath because, we're talking 5 or 6 of the top-ranked teams in Canada, and you're meeting them right away. You don't even get a pause here to breathe oxygen. Can we bring in extra oxygen? You guys, like, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think for me, I used to have hair, and then the Western Conference let it. Since I've been here, it's all fallen out. So it's stressful every day. But you know what? I think, sure, you and I have talked about this before about player development and how it helps in the Western Conference. So, you know, we have to players have to play every night, and they have to, you know, compete and everything else. And I think, you know, that goes to, you know, the Western Conference, that, you know what, you don't get any days off, and if you take a day off, you don't get better, and before you know it, you miss the playoffs. And I think that for our players, it's definitely something that we, you know, I think it makes everybody better. It's the competitive nature of the groups. You know, I remember, you know, driving around with you those endless nights where you seem like we've been driving for weeks and months on end, and most times it is September to the time you're done. But I mean, it'd be interesting to put a tracker on all the teams in the West just to see where they are.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, because I know you so well, and I know how. I mean, I wore out the carpet just watching it on TV, it's funny, you really put the thumb on something, and it had a lot to do with John Wooden, the noted basketball coach, UCLA. Talked about competitive greatness when you get to the top of your pyramid, and it's be at your best when your best is needed, and enjoy the moment of a difficult challenge. And I thought you guys have really displayed that, because with you and the coach as its leaders, there's great. You're a humble team, but you have found a way to be your best when your best is needed, and this is the way I see it. This is what I'm telling you, and that's why. But when you're getting in an overtime game, they don't count the fact that you had 63 shots, because generally sometimes it could be a fluky goal, and there's nothing more past than saying, well, we had all those shots. But I thought your team was, in the last 2 minutes, suffered some adversity, and I thought the way that they came out and regrouped themselves, they didn't seem to be affected by that. And I think because of what you've seen, playing all these good teams all the time, you've developed that sense of self-confidence.
Yeah, for sure. And I think adding, you know, that was one of the things that we wanted to add was, you know, some experience. Guys had been down this road before, and, you know, whether that be Sorelli, and I just talked to Fogle before he hopped on the ice here, and I said, "How do you feel today?" He goes, "Well, I feel a lot better today than I did the last 2 minutes of the third period when I ended up taking that penalty." So, you know, I think what we've gone through in the last 2 weeks is huge for us, and I think hopefully we carry on here and learn from the, you know, the stuff that we've gone through. I mean, hey, we're talking about Chris Knobloch, who played under you know, Owen Sound's coach, and you know, when Chris left Kootenay, you know, Ryan McGill took over in Kootenay. So there's a little bit of internal rivalry too amongst those guys. You know, the old coach and his former player, and the coach of one team, and you know, somebody who came in and took over for him. So there's a lot of sidebars to this, obviously, and maybe two teams from the Midwest Conference both playing in the Western Conference. Not that it's abnormal, but it's something that you know, we're excited for, and you know, we'll see. We're praying and hoping that, you know, the best of our players show up.
Well, Brownie, here's what I want to tell you. I made a lot of decisions over my hockey career. 40 years at different levels, whether it was the NHL or wherever. Two of the better decisions I made. One was hiring you, because you were extremely loyal and you worked hard and you made me better. And two was hiring Knobloch. And if you remember, when we were going to hire Knobloch, I had interviewed him months before that, just to talk to him and stuff like that. And we took some heat about not hiring Ontario. You know, people were making comments, and I said I didn't know geography was a prerequisite. But to me, those were two good decisions that I made in hockey, and I want nothing but success. And remember this, as I said earlier, when man moves a mountain, he moves it by carrying away small stones. I hope you continue carrying away small stones. And, I'm not objective about what's going on here now in the playoffs. Make no mistake.
We appreciate that, Bass. And there's no doubt there's, the time we all spent together and everything else, and we talk about, culture changers and everything else. We definitely, what we did here is kind of a carry on from the whole time that we built this thing together. And, we're excited here in Erie. And as you know, I mean, you lived through some great times here. You were the person that put this team here and believed in the city and its whole, the whole demographic. And you know what? There's no doubt. Our success. We're all in this together.
Well, I appreciate that, and I want you to know I'm pulling hard for you. Whether even though I'm doing this show and I'm supposed to be objective, I'm not going to lie to people, and I sincerely, hopefully for the best for you guys, and just carry away a few more small stones in this next series, and we'll talk about the rest, and keep punching. I'm pulling for you.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Good to talk to you.
No worries. Good luck, Dave.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Sherry,
do you see something different with this Otters team from other years?
Well, I think the real key thing is that they've been to the wall pounding, and they got out goaltended. We did. I can say we because I was a lot of the players on that team I had something to do with and so forth. And they've really got a great owner there now too. Boy, I mean, he does anything for that team, and to know him is to love that owner. And the real issue is this, with everything that's going on, I think getting by London and that great goaltending, they do believe now that they can take anybody on, no matter, because they're meeting another great goaltender. But they passed the test of beating a really great goaltender. And when we got to the finals and stuff before, we always ran into goaltending that's done them, and I think now they believe they can do it.
Sherry, can you discuss how hard it is to find a goaltender in junior hockey, how hard it is to draft one?
You see, the whole secret, we just talked about Nylander with the Leafs and stuff. The whole secret is projecting. London seems to do a pretty good job with it because they brought in goaltenders. But the real issue is projecting how good this guy's going to be. And you draft these goaltenders and you see them, and it got a lot. Goaltenders are different. Make no mistake about it. And because the focus that it requires, the preparation that it requires, the grit that it requires. Because you and I talk about, we like to sit up higher in a game to see the whole play and study the game. And I take you to some games with me and stuff like that, and all those people down low that think they can't see the game. Most people just remember the puck going in the net. They see the goal scored and say, what was that goalie doing? As opposed to the responsibility of the rest of the team, which you and I talk about, where it could have been some dumb play in the offensive zone, they let the guy get away. So you got to have real courage, and you can't be thin-skinned to be a good goaltender. Because everybody the next day, if you let a bad goal in, they're going to critique it.
It's just finding the goaltender, Sherry.
That's the issue, to find all those human characteristics. And some of them takes a while to develop. Okay? There's a lot of goaltenders playing in the NHL that started with other teams.
True.
Become
Very
real good
true.
goaltenders. And it's that projection. Hey, I enjoyed this week. We had to miss a week because of our commitment that everybody has commitments to whatever it is. And I'm looking forward to next week.
Well, Sherry, before we close off the show, I wanted to talk to you quickly about what happened with Aaron Hernandez.
Oh, yeah.
Recently took his own life in prison. And, what are your thoughts on that situation?
That's a real point that you put out. That's a real point. Talk about a waste, eh?
Yeah.
Talk about a talent. I was just looking up things like that, and just talk about, it's just ridiculous to see such a waste of talent there. And for whatever reason, it takes a lot of courage to take your own life. You know what I mean? To want to end it. And
a lot of hurt.
This guy was such a special. I mean, he'd have been all-star. He was Hall of Fame material. And now he's not with us.
Yeah, and as much as we can touch on his football career, I mean, there are other issues here as well, of course, and something that if you see people on the internet, on Twitter, have noticed, he's leaving behind a 4-year-old daughter and a fiance, and it's just, the whole thing is just tragic.
Well,
really.
It's tragic to the fact that it's an example without, whatever the reasons are, how you in your own decision making can affect that you never reach a goal that you could have reached because you had the ability to reach it. And making poor decisions make great stories. And this man, before he took his own life, made a lot of poor, bad decisions. And hey, hopefully for those that believe that they'll forget what happened in his next life.
Yeah, and hopefully young, aspiring football players, non-football players even, will learn from Aaron Hernandez's story and understand the importance of staying on the right track.
I think that's a great point, Minion, is what people can learn from this, and hopefully a lot of young people learn from this, because life has been pretty good to you and me, and I'm excited because I like who I am when I'm around people, and Minion, I even like who I am when I'm around you. So
nicest thing Sherry Basson has said to his minion on the Let Me Tell You Something podcast.
See you next week.